everybody. This is the Brother Pastor Podcast. I am Charles Perkins, and today we're visited by my wife, Audrey Perkins, and we're here with Pastor Levert Parker and his wife, Kelly Parker. Yeah. And so let's talk about this idea of brother pastor. What is this idea? What is this idea that you've come up with?
Yeah, thanks, Deacon Charles, if it's okay for me to call you that. So I've been blessed to serve as pastor of Christ Community Church now for almost 15 years. And even prior to that, I served as a staff pastor in other ministries and been involved with a number of different ministries throughout the city of Cleveland. And so I've had the privilege to interact with the church a lot and also to interact with a lot of pastors. And it's been my experience that the pastors that I get a chance to do life with, brothers I get a chance to interact with, are godly men who love their congregations. They love their families. Some of them are bivocational, meaning they work jobs and they serve the church. And just humble men that just want to honor God. And part of the burden for the Brother Pastor ministry and the podcast came from in the social media space. There's a lot of depictions about the pastor, and understandably so, because there are some, unfortunately, there's pastors that are crooks and trying to take advantage of their congregation. But I would say that that's a small minority of the totality of all the pastors. I think for the most part, the majority of pastors are faithful. They're serving their families, they're serving their congregations, and unfortunately is those that sometimes do things that are contrary to the faith and contrary to our walk that has the notoriety, right? And so the spotlight gets put on them. And so, I mean, just recently a celebrity came out just really talking bad about the church, and they use words like all and always, and it makes it seem like every pastor is like that. And I just wanted to say, you know what, every pastor's not like that. There's some really good pastors that are faithful and that are serving diligently. And so this podcast is kind of designed just to kind of talk about that and to let people know, like, there are some good churches and good pastors, and just to really expose people to that. And just because you have one pastor that maybe failed or did something wrong, that does not speak for all the pastors. That would be like a woman having a bad experience with a man and saying all men are dogs, right? And certainly there are some dogs out there, right? But at the same time, there's dogs and there's men, right? There's men that will be faithful and committed to their woman and so forth. So I wanted to do this podcast because I just wanted to present a different type of image of the pastor.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, because I think especially being a Christian in this day and age and how well connected we are through social media, It's really hard to miss a lot of the negativity that comes from the church, especially with recent skits that's come out, different interviews, different podcasts. I know I've heard quite a few, and personally, I've been heartbroken almost from it, because I know that even though that doesn't reflect the body of the church as a whole, it is something that is a reality. And it is some of the things where, you know, the bigger and more notoriety churches, they have the biggest spotlight and they have the biggest reach, right? The biggest influence, the biggest impact. And unfortunately, I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, God uses people in the church, people that are broken, people that are hurt, people that walk right as well.
That's right.
And it's just kind of unfortunate where you do have sometimes people in the spotlight that don't shepherd well. They leave a really bad impression with people, I think especially with money. I don't know about you guys, but I know personally, I've seen experiences with, I feel like there's this uneasiness that I'm sure people have experienced, especially when it comes to, like, for example, money in church.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big piece. And you said something really key. And I want to make sure we're balanced in this podcast, because this is not a podcast to bash churches to have notoriety, right? It's not a podcast to bash mega churches, right? You said something really key. The Bible is full of stories and accounts of fallen people that God used in very significant ways. And so by no means are we trying to do that. But at the same time, we're trying to say there are many more that are faithful and serving the Lord, and they don't get the proper attention. And so in this podcast, I just really want to expose that. And I really want to expose as well that there's many brothers that I know that serve as pastors we struggle with the social media space because we don't want to feel like we're promoting ourselves.
Right.
We don't want to feel like we're promoting our agenda and who we are. So many of us struggle with this space, and I've been challenged to get into the space more. But I'm like, if I get into the space, I got to find a voice that I think is really that needs to be heard, and I think this is the voice to be heard. And I also wanted to show that the pastor is not about him. It's about the church. It's about Christ, what God is doing through the church. So that's part of the reason why I wanted you guys to be here. I feel like each one of you guys brings something of value. Christ gave gifts to the church. The Holy Spirit gives gifts to the church. And so the pastor needs all the gifts of the church. When we are all flowing in our gifts, we can have the impact that God is calling us to have. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted you guys to be here is because, one, I told our church family, if I'm going to get on social media, we all get on social media, right? We all going to come up together. Right. But then the other thing, I just wanted to show that this is not about me. It's about Christ and what he's doing through his church. I think one of the most joyful times that we've had recently in the last year is when we found out you guys were pregnant. And that just brought so much joy and so much excitement to us as a church to be able to walk with you guys through this journey in your first child. And to be there and support you guys. We were there when you got married. We were there when you got engaged. As a matter of fact, I remember you told me when you got engaged, and my wife got upset with me because I didn't tell her. Right? But I said, he told me not to tell anybody. I didn't know what to do with that information.
I forgot all about that. Now I'm
okay, I'm sorry. Well, I know how tight you and Audrey are, so I didn't want to put that burden on you. And so, but we remember when you guys got engaged, and then when you got married. And then the exciting news when you told us that she was pregnant. Those moments are priceless. And so it's more than just hearing somebody preach on Sunday or hearing some songs on Sunday. It's like getting the news that Deacon Charles and Audrey are having a baby. That just brings so much joy to the community. So we're excited for you guys. I know that the due date is coming up in a few months. Just don't have the baby on the podcast. Please don't do that. You know what happened with our third child.
Right.
So
don't.
Right.
Yeah. So any warning signs, stop it and get her out of here. But we're excited for you guys, and we're thankful to be on the journey with you guys.
Thank you.
And so I appreciate you guys being here. You, Deacon Charles, you as well, Audrey, and all the gifts that you bring to our church. Your wife has been such a blessing to our ministry over the years. And thank God for my beautiful wife and her service. Probably one of the best speakers I've ever heard communicate and speak. She's a phenomenal speaker. Absolutely. Check her out on TED Talk. If I can give a shout out. I know it's my brother pastor, but you can check her out on TED Talk, right? And I just feel like you guys bring something of value to this conversation. But so I just want to be clear. It's not trying to bash any type of segment of the church. It's trying to show there's another aspect of the church that doesn't get a lot of attention. That is faithful, serving, and I think people need to know about it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to mention, piggybacking what you were saying about social media, I think it's kind of bigger than that. It's like, how's the church depicted in media in general? So whether it's TV shows or movies and all of the things, right? And I know that all of the time that I have known you, that's been like your, there's something you really hate. Because more often than not, when the black church is depicted, it's depicted like this. With the church full of drama and just carnal. I can't think of another word, and so I think this is a good conversation to have because we look at that and think that's always the case.
We do.
Unfortunately, sometimes it is the case because often that art is imitating something of reality, But it's certainly not always the case.
No, I tell you guys what, I am, I hope no one gets offended by this, but I am working hard to go to the gym, to work out, to make sure I take care of myself, because I'm not going to be that preacher that eats fried chicken, that can't talk, huffing and puffing. I'm like, that's not going to be me, because that's a depiction that you have, right, from the media, is that, he's gluttonous, he's greedy, he just concerns about himself. And I'm like, no, there's another image of the pastor that needs to be displayed, especially in the black church, because historically, we're going to do a podcast on this one day, historically, the voice that brought about change in the Black community came from the Black church. That's the reason why during the Civil Rights Movement, it was always Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, right? And Reverend Jesse Jackson, right? Because these guys come out of the church. So I want to just show that kind of depiction of the church.
So let's get down to brother pastor, right? So let's get down. So we got these two words, brother pastor. How do you define that? Like, what does that look like in a maybe more personable kind of aspect? How do you describe maybe yourself as a brother pastor? Or maybe other elders in the church or other pastors that you know? What does that look like for you?
It's a great question. So the brother pastor concept actually comes out of the Black church. I have such an affinity and love for the Black church. And I feel like in scholarship, in education, in Christian education and seminaries, when we talk about the church, we always skip over the contribution of the Black church. And I think it's unfortunate because the Black church has contributed a lot to Christianity. And so it comes out of that context. I grew up in a predominantly Black church. And in the Black community, in the Black church, we refer to each other as brother and sister, right? So-and-so. I mean, all my life, I know some members from the church just as, I thought that was their first name. Like, sister, and that's not your first name? You know, because it was so ingrained in me to refer to them like that. And I really appreciate that about the Black church because it shows the community aspect and the fact that we're family, right? And so the brother piece of brother pastor is just to emphasize and remind everyone that the pastor first and foremost is a brother. The pastor identity first and foremost is a child of God. And that will always be his identity. Even when time has gone by, even as he goes into eternity, for all eternity, he will always be a child of God. And so the brother aspect is just to highlight the fact that as a brother, you know, he goes through the same woes and challenges. He needs the body of Christ, just like everybody else. So the brother aspect just emphasizes the fact that the pastor's first identity is who he is in Christ as a child of God. But then also he gets the privilege to serve as a pastor. And it is a privilege. It is a great honor to serve as a pastor. People trust you with very vulnerable parts of their life. They share stuff with you. They listen to you, right? It's a very special privilege that a pastor has in a person's life. And it should be honored. And it should be respected. And so I don't want to go to the extreme. You know, one extreme is to say, well, he's just another brother in the church, just treat him like everybody else. No, he is a brother in the church, but he is a pastor. The other extreme is to say, well, he's pastor, he can't be approached. Like, no, he's a brother as well. And I want to bring that balance together that, as a brother in the Lord, some of us have been called out to also serve as pastors, which is a great honor. And so I love that in the Black church community, I mean, it's pretty common. You hear them say brother minister or brother pastor or something like that. So I wanted to bring both of those dynamics together, realities together in this particular ministry.
I really appreciate that on many different levels, because I think especially in the Black church, at least the way I was raised, I think sometimes we can almost put a pedestal on pastors, and so it almost puts them in this different like atmosphere, as if they're almost like bulletproof, for example. But at the same time, I think that very, very true. Like, they are pastors where they do have a responsibility to shepherd, right? So there is a level of accountability that they have additional, that they have more, that they're more responsible over. But at the same time, I think one of the reasons why I appreciate it, because it's almost, I want to be careful how I use it, but you almost like humanize the person, because it's like, that is still a person. They still have feelings. They still, we understand, they still hurt. They still, have thoughts. They still go through, they still stressed.
That's right.
They need, I heard this one pastor say that like the cross is even all the way at the bottom. They need just as much grace as I do.
Absolutely. And sometimes we forget that in the church. And so I wanted to create this platform just to let people know, like, no, there's two dynamics, two realities that the pastor has. We all, quite honestly, have the same calling. Our calling is to be a faithful servant of the Lord. All of us share that calling. The way that looks varies depending upon what God is doing in your life and the way that God has gifted you and so forth. But all of our first calling is to Christ as a child of God. And that's going to always be, we're always going to be a servant, always a child of God. And so it's just trying to keep that balance, keep that balance there. Yeah.
So I guess my question for you is along those same lines, like, what do you think that people misunderstand about your role of being a pastor? And then also too, this is a second follow-up question. You guys are talking a lot about being humble and being sincere and being approachable, which is exactly the opposite of what has been shown in media. How do you feel like that shows up in the life of a brother pastor?
Yeah, those are two good questions. Well, I think, as far as the second question is concerned, I think unfortunately, some people, we have glamorized the pastorship.
Yeah.
When you think about the word pastor, it really comes from a humble place. It's really interesting because the ideal of a pastor doesn't even begin in the New Testament. The idea of a pastor begins way back in the Old Testament. The pastors were the ones that took care of the sheep. They took care of the animals. And it was a mundane, a very humble, kind of a lowly job, respectable for sure. But by the time you get to the time of King David, it is more of a lowly job. Because think about it, when Samuel goes to Jesse to anoint the next king, Jesse brings out 7 of his sons. And Samuel's like, "What, you got any other?" He's like, "Yeah, we got the smallest one. We watching the sheep." Right? But it's during that time that David is watching the sheep that he's developing the characteristics that God is calling his leaders to have to care for his people, right? David is loving on the sheep. He's taking care of the sheep. Matter of fact, he tells, Saul that when a wild animal came to attack the sheep, he fought the animal. I'm like, man, that's some love for the sheep. I was like, we got just one less in our flock, right? That was me. But he was developing that shepherding type of love. And shepherding is such a key component in the Bible that God is referred to as a shepherd, right? I mean, think about probably the most popular psalm in all of the Bible is Psalm 23. And Psalm 23 begins out as what? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? And Jesus is called the Good Shepherd. One of our favorite verses together is in Hebrews when it talks about that great shepherd of the sheep, right? And so, Jesus is referred to as a shepherd. God is referred to as a shepherd. And so when God wanted to bring out people to care for his church, calls them shepherds, right? Acts chapter 20, Paul calls out the elders. He said, keep watch over the flock that the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 5, shepherd the flock of God that's among you. Shepherding is so important to God that in Ezekiel 34, probably one of my favorite passages as it relates to shepherding. I got a lot of favorite passages in the Bible. In Ezekiel 34, God gets on the leaders. He said, you're supposed to be shepherding our people, but you are shepherds who are feeding yourself. He said the shepherd's supposed to be feeding the flock. And so within the life of a brother pastor, understanding that responsibility and the love for the sheep and understanding that God refers to himself as a shepherd and Jesus refers to himself as a shepherd, should create a great deal of humility to serve as a pastor. I think about Paul, 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Paul says, how should people regard us? He said they should regard us in 2 ways. This is what Paul said as an apostle: as servants of Christ and as stewards of this gospel. And I think that for the brother pastor, he understands the weight of that. He understands that he's a servant. He understands that he's a steward of what God has given, entrusted to him, that is God's flock. And so that creates this deep sense of just humility and awe and reverence for the role, because you realize that, God has entrusted, his very people into your charge to care for. So as far as the humility piece, I think it's just an understanding of what a shepherd is from the Bible, I think is what is at the forefront of the thinking of a brother pastor. And then your first question, remind me your first question again.
What did I ask you?
Do you remember your first question?
I said, did I ask, what do people misunderstand about the role of the pastor?
That's what you asked, yeah, what people misunderstand. Yeah, I think that, it goes back to that very point. We've glamorized pastoring today. I mean, it's the way to get the mic. Yeah. It's the way to say something. And the fact of the matter is, the pastor was always supposed to be a humble role to serve the people. And unfortunately, we've made it a pathway to get the spotlight and to be glamorized. And I think people misunderstand that. Pastoring, I think probably one of the key things that a lot of people miss out or misunderstand about pastoring is they think pastoring is just about preaching. And so when we find a person that can preach well, we think they should be a pastor. But I'm about to say something that's going to be profound. I don't know how people are going to like this on the podcast, right? But I'm about to drop something on you guys. Not every preacher is a pastor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not every preacher is a pastor. Just because you've been gifted to communicate well does not mean that you should pastor, because pastoring is so much more than what you do on Sunday morning. It's an important piece. It's a very significant piece. But pastoring is about being in the lives of people. I remember I read a quote that says that if you're a pastor, you should smell like sheep. Mm-hmm. Too many pastors smell like cologne, right? I mean, they don't smell like sheep. They don't. In other words, what they're saying is that you should be among the people. Like there shouldn't be this gap, this chasm between you and the people. Like you should be among the people, and so you should smell like you're serving and you're involved and you engage with the people. And too many people misunderstand the pastoring as just preaching.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So with, again, being in an environment where you have all different kind of pastors, all different kind of churches, what do you think are some maybe identifiers that people can use to see, okay, this is a good brother pastor right here?
Yeah.
What are maybe some characteristics that you think or maybe that you've seen or experienced even in yourself that can help people, the sheep, try to figure out, okay, like what church do I go to, or how do I find a some place where I can grow?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, one of our future podcasts, we're going to talk just about how to find a good church. So that's something that people can preview. I think you go to the text. 1 Timothy chapter 3 lays out the qualifications of a leader in the church. And the bulk of the qualification in 1 Timothy chapter 3 has to do with their character. So in our modern day, we look for their resume. We look for their education. We look for, did they go to this prestigious, school? We look for those types of things. But in the Bible, it's all about, what's the man's character? And so when you go to passages like 1 Timothy chapter 3 and also Titus chapter 1, it talks about the fact that he's a man above reproach. It talks about how he is with his family. If he's faithful to his family, is he a one-woman man? It talks about that. It talks about how he relates to his children. It talks about if he's quarrelsome, is he gentle? I mean, those are the type of characteristics that you need to look for in a person, and it takes time to observe that. As a matter of fact, he said this is the qualification for a person to serve as a leader, as an elder, as a pastor in the church. As a matter of fact, when you study the Bible closely, 1 Timothy chapter 3 and Titus chapter 1, as it talks about the qualifications of a pastor, of an elder, it only really lists 2 skills. The bulk of it is related to his character. And really the only 2 skills that he needs to have is to be able to teach and to be able to manage his family well. That's what the text says. Yeah. And so I think what a person needs to look for, and we'll parse this out more when we have our podcast on how to identify a good church, but you got to look at the character of the person. So you got to spend some time and observe. Certainly he should be able to preach, you probably like this. He better teach the word of God, but it's so much more than that.
So we talked earlier about these TikTok videos and skits that people are doing that are framing the church in a bad light. And it's a narrative that the church is a business or performance. So what would you say to somebody who believes that?
Well, unfortunately, I think many churches are trying to cater towards entertaining. I mean, think about it. What other place can you go every week to hear some good music and hear some good speaking? Right? I mean, for free. Right. I mean, well, you don't really have to pay anything, right? I mean, and so unfortunately, some churches have adopted that model, and it's really unfortunate because the Sunday morning experience is just one small segment of the greater community of the church. My answer is that I think we need to get back to community. We need to get back to life on life. Many churches have small groups. They have Bible studies. They have, ways that they are engaging people throughout the week. Churches are serving, people, mothers, single parent mothers that are dealing with their children, helping marriages heal. I mean, that's the life of the church. The culmination of it is Sunday morning, but the life of the church is throughout the week as the church is serving people and helping people process and grow in their faith and in their walk. And so I will say that the Sunday morning experience is just one small segment of it.
Yeah.
I think what people are really longing for, especially in our social media age, is community.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the church can offer. And it's bigger than just Sunday.
Yeah. Like, I 1,000% agree that I think part of, that it is certainly, I think you can, if a church that's planted in a community has no impact, then it's like, what are you really doing?
Right.
So I definitely think that it's really important for a church to be involved in the community. I feel like at the same time, like, I understand, I guess also being the treasurer of a church, I understand that it as the church from a legal perspective is a nonprofit organization. It's not there to make money, but there is a business aspect to it, right? Like, if you have a building, you got to be able to pay the bills, you got to pay the gas, you got to take care of maintenance, you got to take care of, there are things that require, like, ministry requires resources. There's no way around that.
Right.
I think, and how you steward the resources, I think, has a big impact on the perspective that other people may see or see and of the church. But I think it is important as well. I just think that, I don't know, I feel like kind of how we've kind of gone through just kind of gone through the time, gone through the generations, and even from a political aspect, from separating church and state, like, that's also influenced how we view church as well, and trying to be isolated. But not, I think for one, I think we're more connected than what we may think. I think, again, it is important to have more of that community aspect, but also understand that there is a way in which God has provided the expansion of his kingdom, and it is through the people, and it is, whether it's through people, I like the 3 T's: your talent, your treasure, and your what was it?
Your time.
Time, right? Yeah, and time. So I'm interested. Maybe what do you guys think? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and this is even more the reason why a brother pastor, a pastor has to be tested, has to have character, because there is the management of the finances. That's an important piece. I mean, money is important. I mean, Jesus says where your treasure is, that's where your heart is at, right? And so that's all the more reason why you need the person that has character. Matter of fact, the Bible even says that they shouldn't be a recent convert, right? Because they may fall into the same condemnation as the devil, right? Pride could get to them, conceit could get to them, the love of money could get to them. And so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pastor has to, under the guidance of the Lord, know how to shepherd the people to be able to manage the treasure, the time, and the resources that they have. So absolutely, and their talents and so forth. I would say another piece, I want to bring my wife into this. Another important piece I would say in my life has been, my wife, because I think one of the things that a godly woman can do in the life of a man is help keep them grounded, and also help process stuff, because I know I bring a lot of the stuff to you, after service, just processing the message, or just, when you feel like things just didn't land well, that, you guys don't get to experience that, but she got to see me like that.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question then.
Okay, all right.
So branching off what you were speaking about, what I see is that it's a role that includes a lot of pressure from a lot of different places. So can you talk about seasons of discouragement and how you navigate through that?
Yeah, so I think one thing is just what I just said about having a spouse, somebody that you can go to that can process, that you don't have to wear your pastor hat with, and I'm fortunate that I have that on multiple levels. I have other pastors and pastors that's been serving longer than me that I'm able to kind of process stuff with. But again, I also have my wife as well. And you have to process those things because those things do weigh heavy on you. And the thing about being a pastor, sometimes you're gonna make great calls and people are gonna celebrate that. They're gonna let you know that was a great call, Pastor. And sometimes you're gonna miss the bucket, right? You're gonna drop the ball, you're gonna fumble. Yeah. And people let you know like, yeah, that was a bad call, Pastor. But to be able to have people that you can process those things with is one. Like I said, I'll share a lot of stuff with Kelly. There's many a Sundays I leave church, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I'm wasting people's time. I mean, those have been some of the exact words I've said. And she's helped me to kind of process that and kind of get myself back in the right mindset. I think the other thing, too, is having a regular prayer life. You got it. Like, you can't, a brother pastor cannot serve in the ministry for the distance if you only read the word in preparation for a message. The word got to be feeding you throughout the week. You got to have constant contact points and moments with God. And so it is extremely important that the pastor has a rhythm of praying and connecting with the Lord. Absolutely vital. So I would say processing things with people and then having a rhythm and the routine of prayer, I think is what help navigates those dark moments. Those are difficult moments. And I think also some longevity as well, because after you've been through it sometime, you know the season to change.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a really good point. I think personally that I definitely see you as a brother pastor, especially, I've walked with you for really since I moved to Ohio, right? Since I moved to Cleveland. So, seeing you how, the different conversations we've had, the different classes we've taken, just playing basketball, right? There's definitely a level of, we've been able to do life, definitely to understand, do life together. So I'm interested, maybe, Kelly, from your perspective, how do you feel that you can, maybe at the same time, support pastor, at the same time hold him accountable? Because I think that is a very, I think again, being a pastor, I think it is a very, at times can be a very heavy responsibility, very important, absolutely, but maybe sometimes can be heavy. How do you feel you can support that?
Well, I think part of it is being willing to be that sounding board when necessary. But I think that in my situation, he's somebody who, in a lot of ways, he holds himself accountable. Like we're all human and fallible and all those things. But the things that he teaches about, he actually does those things. Like nobody in my house is going to outpray him or outread their word or all of those things. So I feel like in a lot of ways, he holds me accountable. So I feel like it's just the proximity of being with other believers. You just tend to hold one another accountable in those ways. But I just try to, hopefully have an encouraging word or sometimes a truthful word. Like this is, what I think it is, or this is what I think might help. And then I think it's been over the years, like fine tuning when is the right time to go which way with it, So I don't know. Every day I'm winging it, even after however many years we've been in ministry, 15 years. 15,
yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things, you're still learning. Like even as our kids are older, I still feel like in certain ways, I'm still a first time mom. Like this is my first time having a child in college. So there's always different seasons where it's new, So I certainly don't even feel like I've mastered. And then I think the other thing is that we all change. So him as a human being or him as a pastor today, he's not the same as he was 15 years ago. And so it's up to me to figure out how to shift and adjust as those seasons change too.
Yeah. She helps me out though, I tell you, in a lot of ways. I'm not the most tech savvy person. So even today, somebody wanted to communicate something to me via text. And y'all know I am not the best at text. I am not the best at texting anybody. So the person texts my wife And you just
So the person's wife texts me, tell me to tell you because you don't read your text.
So there you go. Thank God for my wife who reads her text. Yeah. So, yeah, but she's a tremendous blessing, and I appreciate her.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, I think that's great to see. I definitely don't want to underskirt your involvement and how you've been a great brother pastor, because I think I've always heard behind a great man is a great woman. But you know, I do you know, want to highlight your significance and especially about kind of like loving a moving target, right? I think that's always in marriage too. We're each constantly growing more and more each day. So you know, I definitely appreciate the work behind the scenes, right, that you've done. That, you know, obviously pastors more in the spotlight or you know, on stage and being more up front, but definitely appreciate what you've done in the background too. So definitely don't want to just kind of skirt past that as a brother pastor, because that's an important aspect of being a brother pastor, especially as a husband as well.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think anyone who is married to somebody, you're loving a moving target.
Absolutely.
But I think the other dynamic is that that I don't think people talk about a lot, is that when you are married to a pastor, you are sharing your spouse with the church, in a sense. Now, they should not, like, you still have to prioritize your marriage and all those things. I'm not saying the church comes before, or I ever feel like it's this, I need to duke it out with the church. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, practically speaking, that's what it is, you know? And so, you know, I think just kind of finding your rhythm within that.
So how do you handle that and staying grounded in your relationship, knowing that you are sharing your husband with the church? Like,
well, seasons change, you know, so I think it could be one answer now and another answer in 10 years. But I think where we are now, so we have like our date night or whatnot. I think that's helpful. But honestly, I don't put my whole well-being on his shoulders. That's the truth. So I have other outlets, and so I welcome this outlet, but I also have room for other things, so that I'm a whole person.
Yeah.
And when you got to stay late, you staying late, and I'm doing me, and I'm okay with that, you know? And so I feel like whomever our mate is, the Lord graces us for that.
Yeah.
And that's my strategy.
Yeah, that's good. Now I've tried to have a balance. Now I'm fortunate because I wasn't always full-time in the ministry. I was bivocational, meaning that I had a full-time job and work for the ministry as well. But now I'm fortunate I can have an off day. And I try to honor that. I mean, you guys know I protect that. Like, I'm at home. And that's where I'm at. She stuck with me. Like, I'm at the house, chilling, all right? Watching Murder, She Wrote. And I'm like at home. And then, like she said, those date nights have been really good for us as well. So
That's amazing. Well, I definitely want to, speak or definitely thank everybody for their feedback. I think that's a good point to end it here. Especially as a brother pastor podcast, this is just the first, right? Just the first podcast and an introduction,
right,
of really what it is and where that comes from, where that's rooted in, especially in light of social media and everything that we see today. So
right.
I definitely appreciate everybody coming out. For those who want to continue to follow us, we have our website. You can go to www.brotherpastor.com. You can find out more. You can reach out to us, any of us. We'll have our social media attached in the description below. If you have any questions, need any prayers, we'll be more than happy to pray for you, to help you as we are living this life together, trying to serve God, trying to be obedient and serve God as best as we know how. We know that we're very much connected, and the best way to do that is together. So we thank you again for coming in. We will see you next time.